Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a different kind of video today. I had the opportunity to attend a special reveal event last night for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the upcoming final installment in the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy. In this video, we'll cover my impressions of the hands-on demo that I got to try, information we learned at the event, and more. Now in total, there were 3 reveal events going on worldwide. One in LA, one in London, and one in Montreal, Canada, the city in which I live, which also happens to be the city in which the developer of the game is situated. Eidos Montreal. Yes, that's right, the rumors were true. It is Eidos Montreal who has made Shadow of the Tomb Raider and not Crystal Dynamics who made the first 2 games. Now for a while there have been rumors that it would be Eidos Montreal working on this game, and some fans of the previous 2 expressed some concern over that. Anytime a game is handed over to a different developer, it's a bit of an unknown element. It's uncertain. Where is the direction going to head? Will they be able to maintain the same quality, the same style? And these rumors have been around ever since the very first leak or teaser for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. It was way back in the summer of, I believe, 2017, when someone snapped a photo on the Montreal subway system, the very subway that I rode to make my way to this event, showing someone with a laptop open, some kind of presentation that said Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This was that picture. And this is that same metro floor that all Montrealers are familiar with. In fact, it's probably a pretty similar metro floor around the world. But I'd like to start by addressing these concerns with sort of what I've learned, and why it's not a big concern for me. And part of that is that it's sort of unfair to say that it was just Crystal Dynamics that made the first 2 games and Eidos had nothing to do with it. Eidos Montreal did have a hand in the creation of the first 2 games, and in fact you can say that Crystal Dynamics had a hand in the creation of the third. Apart from Eidos Montreal having contributed to the first 2 projects, the strongest link really is the game director across all 3 games, Daniel Chaillet-Bisson. He's been working on the Tomb Raider trilogy for 8 years. He's the creative director and game director on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and he was a game director on Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider. He sort of split his time between Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal. For a time he lived in LA, he worked at Crystal Dynamics, but as you can probably tell from the name, he's a French-Canadian through and through, and it's about time he came back home. And at the event, he gave a presentation, and his passion for the project is absolutely obvious, as well as his clarity of vision and his sense of purpose towards the trilogy as a whole. It's clear that these games were not individually designed in a vacuum, or that the third one was just tacked on. Hearing Bisson talk about the game, talk about the trilogy, talk about the evolution of Lara, her journey, it's very obvious that all 3 games were imagined from the start, that they knew where they would be heading towards the final game. In the first game, it's Lara surviving the world. It's a young Lara just out of college. She's just beginning her journey. In the second game, it's Lara exploring the world. She's gaining a bit more confidence, but she's still new to all this. And now in this third game, it's Lara mastering the world. This is where she completes her journey, she completes her arc, and now becomes the Tomb Raider that we've known for the past 2 decades. And if there's any other concerns about Eidos Montreal taking the reins here, do remember that it was Eidos that first made Tomb Raider, so this is sort of just a return of the franchise to its roots. Now there's another concern from fans, and that's the lead writer. Rhianna Pratchett was the lead writer on the first 2 games. She's the daughter of the famous fantasy author Terry Pratchett, and she has quite a number of credits on previous games. Now, Pratchett did not return to lead write on the 3rd project. Instead, the new lead writer is Jill Murray. Her list of credits isn't as extensive as Pratchett's, but included on that list are 2 Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, in which she was a co-writer, and that game got mixed reviews, with its story being both praised and criticized. But then she was the lead writer on Assassin's Creed 4, which received critical acclaim, and its story was praised as being one of the best in the entire franchise. So while it is a valid concern that this 3rd installment now has a different lead writer, the new writer Jill Murray does seem to show quite a bit of promise, and from what little of the story I've experienced so far, I'm excited to see where things are going. There's certainly a unique twist in this one, which we'll get to in a bit. Now, before we get into discussing the demo, let's first talk a little bit about the event itself. So I arrive at the venue, which is a place called New City Gas. It's a popular live music venue here in Montreal, and it's built sort of within a relic from the city's past. You see, the complex was built in 1859 as something of a primitive power plant. Over there, coal was transformed into gas in order to light the streets of the city. And in 2012, this place was reopened and repurposed into an event space, keeping the outer shell of what appears to be modern-day ruins. So it was the perfect setting for a Tomb Raider event. You know, short of actual ancient ruins. But it was nicely symbolic that Lara visits ancient ruins, and so we were visiting something of a modern ruin. And one thing about this venue is their little light displays. They tend to project a lot of stuff on the front facade of the building, and for the Tomb Raider event, they had projected onto it the ominous Eclipse game logo, which is a theme that would be continued within the building. A lot of the spotlights, a lot of the lighting had a little filter on it for that eclipse shape, which was a really nice touch. Once we got inside, the venue was decorated with a distinctly jungle theme, complete with a fog machine and ominous music for ambiance. The jungle, the Amazon, the mighty jungle, is a big theme in this upcoming Tomb Raider game. 2 cosplayers were hired for this event. They were dressed as Lara Croft as she appears in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and her outfit is starting to become a lot more reminiscent of the very first Lara Croft outfit that we ever saw. Again, this is Lara finalizing her journey into becoming that Tomb Raider that we met in 1996. And while they were hired cosplayers, they were also clearly big fans of the franchise. They were very excited to be at the event. They were Hannah, aka Pixel Stitcher, and Indra Rojas, aka Fantasy Ninja. And a third cosplayer was just attending as a fan, and she was dressed as Lara from one of the previous 2 games. There was a Tomb Raider themed photo booth where you can take those sort of 3D rotating pictures. One of those setups where you have a bunch of pictures in a semicircle that all take a picture at once, and then when you play it back as an animation, it looks like you're looking at a moment frozen in time, spinning through the air. That's actually how they did one of the fight scenes with Neo and Agent Smith in The Matrix back in the day. They served Latin American themed food, which again played heavily into the theme of the game, and there was an open bar with themed cocktails including the Maia Apocalypse, the Shadow, and the Solar Eclipse. So once everyone got situated, the event kicked off with a presentation, which started with a cinematic, this trailer that is now available for public viewing. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, but it's basically an expansion of the teaser trailer that we saw about a month ago. It shows a little bit more of Lara going through the jungle, becoming one with the jungle, killing Trinity mercenaries, and one element that was hidden from the teaser was this whole scene with a Mayan about to sacrifice another Mayan in some ritual, and then Lara comes up and stops it, which then seems to have some rather ominous implications. And it was after that cinematic that Daniel Chaillet-Bisson, the game director and creative director, came out to give his presentation. And in addition to what I already covered, he discussed how this game will have more underwater segments than the other games. We're talking underwater caverns, we're talking about underwater challenge tombs, where you find yourself asking, am I gonna survive getting there? And just as a little preview of my experience with the demo, where they did throw in some underwater scenes, there's a lot of those moments where you're holding your breath, you're wondering, am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make it to the next air pocket? Bisson spoke about how the jungle, the Amazon jungle, is going to be a big theme. How they're treating the setting almost like a second character. And basically how Lara has gone from just surviving her environment to becoming one with the environment. Which you can really see in that cinematic where you got these Trinity mercs and they just look like they're scared poopless in this jungle as they're getting picked off one by Lara, or by the jungle itself. Bisson spoke about how there's going to be lots of Mayan tombs to explore. There will be more tombs in this game than the previous 2 games. We're going much deeper underground, and these Mayan tombs are going to be a lot more terrifying than the tombs we've previously seen. And a big part of this is just because of the Mayan culture itself. These are a people that worshipped fear. They celebrated death. And so these tombs will offer terrifying vistas and much deadlier puzzles and traps. Bisson basically explained that this is a setting in which everything is trying to kill you. And he also hinted at something that he could not quite fully reveal, but he was clearly excited about. And my understanding is that this game will have the biggest space to explore in the franchise history in the form of some kind of a hidden city. And this may or may not be related to some cenotes, which are basically big sinkholes that were important to the Mayan culture. And another big takeaway from his presentation was that in the past 2 games, Lara Croft is reacting to the actions of others. Whereas in this game, she'll have to deal with the consequences of her own actions. It was an interesting teaser, and in the gameplay demo, I believe we got to find out exactly what he was teasing. So onto the demo itself. The demo was about an hour of gameplay. It wasn't the very start of the game, but pretty close to it, maybe 15 minutes in. We start off in a city in Mexico, celebrating the Day of the Dead. Lara and her companion Jonah are discussing plans, and Jonah is looking a lot closer to the way he looked in the first game rather than the second game. His Polynesian descent is far more obvious now. It sounds like they're trying to get to this artifact before Trinity does. They're this evil Illuminati-style organization, kind of, that killed her father, and kind of want to steal artifacts and stuff for bad reasons. So based on clues that they've found and are deciphering, Jonah thinks that the artifact is in Brazil. But then Lara points out the fact that these clues are based on a SNAR map that the Mayans made a very long time ago, and since then, an effect called precession has altered the location of the stars, the constellations in the sky. To explain what precession is, think of a spinning top, how at some point it'll go like this. So it's spinning on its own axis, but the axis of rotation is also rotating. That is precession. And Earth does this as well. While it's spinning on its own axis, the axis is wobbling. So the location of stars, of constellations, shifts over time. And Lara is a super genius and is able to figure out basically instantly what the constellations looked like back in the times of the Mayans, and she figures out that the actual location is Peru and not Brazil. So they realize that Trinity is looking in the wrong place. Trinity is likely going to Brazil. Now there's actually two artifacts that they're after. One is a dagger and one is a box. The box is what appears to be in Peru, but as for the dagger, that seems to be relatively nearby to where they are, and Trinity is also in the city in Mexico that these two are in. Lara snoops around, spies on Trinity, overhears their plans, realizes that they are closing in on the dagger, so she rushes forward to try to get it before them. That's when we get our nice tomb raiding sequence with some cool puzzles. That's probably my favorite aspect of these games, the whole adventuring part of it. The combat is cool and all, but I can get combat from other games. What I can't get from other games is the puzzles, the exploration, the climbing, the jumping, all that kind of stuff. I guess in the past we would call that platforming, but it's evolved so much. So we finally get to the dagger, and there's this inscription, this basically giant warning sign, and she's reading the ancient Mayan, and it's talking about Kukulkan, who is a creation god, but is also a destruction god, basically. And the inscription is warning about a series of apocalypses, a tsunami, an earthquake, a volcano, all kinds of giant natural disasters that could happen. So Lara figures, I need to get this dagger before Trinity does. I cannot let Trinity get this dagger and cause all of these apocalypses. I mean, one apocalypse is bad enough. So Lara grabs the dagger, Trinity is closing in on the area, so she has to escape, runs into Trinity agents on her way out, fights some until eventually being sort of captured. The big bad guy, Dominguez, basically takes the dagger from her, and he essentially reveals that the dagger, when combined with the box, the next artifact that they're going for, these two artifacts together have the power to reshape the world. However, if you just grab the dagger, you actually trigger that series of apocalypses. And just as he's saying this, you get the sense that a tsunami is starting, so he flees with his goons on a helicopter, as Lara is left behind now to face the oncoming flood. And so we have this sequence of Lara through the tsunami. You're seeing the city getting destroyed, innocent people being affected by all this. There's lots of underwater sequences here. And it ends with Lara meeting Jonas on the roof of a building. She's talking to him, she's telling him that she wants to rush over to Peru to get the box of E-Shell so that she can stop these apocalypses that she's apparently triggered. And Jonah's like, we can't go, these people need us. There's a disaster going on right now, these people need our help. He tells her, you don't even know that you caused this. And basically points out the world doesn't revolve around you, Lara. So you have this really strongly written moral dilemma where we're basically picking between two incompatible goods, and those are the good moral dilemmas. But the scene basically ends on the note of Lara realizing what she's done, seeing the destruction of the city, seeing basically that She caused this. And I think that's what Daniel Bisson meant by Lara having to deal with the consequences of her actions. Nice job breaking it, hero. Now overall, the demo did a good job of showing off a bit of everything, some combat, some exploration, some puzzles, some story, and it also showed off some new gameplay mechanics that just seemed like natural extensions of existing mechanics. They blended seamlessly with the familiar gameplay, and it also showed off the new Lara. Not only has she grown as a person, but she's also grown some mad triceps. She's a little bit more buff now. She looks like someone who's actually a climber, who has to haul her body mass around. So that physical transformation has accompanied her character growth. And then we also left the event with a goodie bag that contained a candle, which I'm presuming has to do with the ritualistic theme, or maybe just the Day of the Dead theme, as well as a jaguar, a puma, a panther, a cougar. I'm gonna say jaguar because there was a type of ancient warrior called an Aztec jaguar. I know we're talking about Mayans and it's a little bit of a different region, but the Aztec jaguars were kind of a special forces of the Aztecs. And in the cinematic, we do see Lara getting attacked by some big cats, but they weren't all black though, so the fact that they're giving us this, I want to guess that we're gonna get a pet Black Panther jaguar cougar at some point. Either that or the devs just want to guilt us into feeling bad about killing these cute little critters. So overall, the event was really cool. I think the demo did a great job of showcasing the game, and I look forward to playing it. Now we gotta wait until September to get the rest of the story. But overall, I think this rebooted Tomb Raider franchise has done a great job of integrating story and gameplay. I think it's a pretty rare thing. Generally, you see either a game with very strong gameplay, kind of lighter on story, or very well done story that the gameplay isn't that up to par. So fingers crossed that this will continue to be that perfect balance. And I'd just like to end on the personal note that Lady Rhykker, aka Bunkisha, can now publicly reveal that she is a dev QA tester on Shadow of the Tomb Raider. She works for Eidos, and for all the time that it was not public knowledge that Eidos Montreal was working on the game, she had to keep that under wraps. And that's gonna wrap up this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the upcoming Tomb Raider game. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch and Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can pledge on Patreon, where your support is immensely appreciated. We've got behind the scenes stuff, Q&A, and more. We're nearing our goal of 300 Patreon supporters. Even $1 helps. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.